Should the Green Bay Packers follow the money or start to look to their future? What should they do with Aaron Rodgers? We got that and much more coming up for you on today's episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, football fans, and welcome into another episode of Locked On NFL, your daily podcast, bringing you all the biggest stories from around the National Football League in right around 30 minutes. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day every day here on the show. Don't forget, we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. You got your Tuesday host here, Ross Jackson at Ross Jackson Nola, Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL on Twitter, your NFL experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks again so much for joining us today. We're going to be breaking down a couple of different things. We're going to give you our yike of the week, one single yike, the worst things that we saw this week. We're also going to pour one out for a team that maybe, Luke, we should have talked about a long time ago. And I'm going to give a special tribute to a player we're not going to see for the rest of the season. But first, speaking of a player we might not see for the rest of the season, Luke, Aaron Rodgers, avulsion fracture in the thumb, rib injury. Yikes. A lot going on. Should the Green Bay Packers, Should the Green Bay Packers sit Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the season and get a look at their future with Jordan Love?
Yes.
Ooh.
Here's where I'm at.
I thought you were going to say no.
So it's over for the Packers. I mean, I don't even think, we could bring Peter Bukowski on here, and I think if we really held his feet to the fire, be like, what, do you think they're making the playoffs? He'd be like, no. Here's the things. There are existential questions that the Packers need to answer in this offseason, and your offseason started early, guys. I know you're not used to it. Sucks. Time comes for everybody. But they have to answer, I think, a lot of questions about their defense, and in particular, Joe Barry. And is he the right guy? Is he up to the task? Do they have the right, what personnel needs to change to make that unit live up to its expectations next year? They are 4 games out of a wild card spot with 6 to play. And they are not the best looking team 4 games out of a wild card spot with 6 games to play. I think if I had to put my money on the Lions or Packers making the playoffs right now, I'm picking the Lions. And I'm not picking either. But I feel like, not only are the Lions I think a half game ahead, but they are they look like a better team.
Yeah. Yeah. The Green Bay Packers right now 4-8 after their loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, 3% chance to make the playoffs. Luke, I'm with you, man. I think you start to get a look at your future with Jordan Love. And Jordan Love has had some moments where he looked really good in that Philadelphia Eagles game. He had a couple of really nice throws, really nice moments, a really great cover 2 hole shot right down the right sideline. That was really impressive. You've got two really good rookie wideouts in Romeo Doubs, as well as, of course, Christian Watson over there. So you have a good run game.
Chemistry.
And you've got a good run game as well. So I think, you start to look at your future. And I understand, look, I get it, right? The Green Bay Packers paid Aaron Rodgers $150,000 over the course of 3 years to be out there. You look at the way that his contract breaks down, there's nothing pretty about it in terms of the way that they move on from any of it. But if that's who this guy is going to be for you, which already kind of felt like a disconnected, disinterested, not a real leader like we're used to seeing when we have the conversation about Aaron Rodgers' of the past. Whatever metamorphosis he went over the course of this offseason was not a very flattering one. So
literal metamorphosis. I believe there was a change in his cellular makeup.
100%. That is absolutely not that is absolutely
That's scientifically
yes
proven, and you can't argue with it. Because
That's right. Because how dare you argue with science? Get out of my face. And so, yeah, no, I think that at this point, yeah, you start to get a look at what you have there. You're out of here. Like, you're done. Your season's over and everything. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, you can now start to evaluate what this team looks like in the future. We have a Packers fan here, I believe a Packers fan, in the chat who says that I'm glad that we finally got to see some Jordan Love after 3 years. Like, this doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah. And what I would want to see, were I a Packer fan, is I want to see them test Jordan Love a little more, because what they did versus the Eagles was pretty simplified. It was, I think, a simplified version of like that week's like game plan. Yeah. And it was, a lot of timing stuff, a lot of like slants and sticks and sort of your bare bones. And that's what you're ready to go in with in the event Aaron Rodgers goes down. But now you've got a week to game plan. You're going up against a defense that just gave up 31 points to Mike White. What?
Get off my television, Chicago Bears. The Bears
who you're going up against. Try some stuff. Packers, if it needs to be Jordan Love, although at this current moment, Aaron Rodgers says he's going to play. I don't think that's good for the long-term future of the Packers, because this is not the year. And if you just look at the schedule that they have left, they have this game at Chicago. They have a home game against the Rams. The Rams are all sorts of out of sorts. That's winnable. Then you got to go to Miami. You got to play the Minnesota Vikings, and then you got to go see if you can't beat Detroit. You lost to both of those last two teams already. So it's going to be a tough road. And I think the best thing for the Packers is to really test Jordan Love. He's been here for 3 years, learning this offense, learning how to play QB at the professional level. Test him, make him, read full field, make him read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the field. Let's see how he goes through a progression. Let's see how he fares when you give him a 7-step drop back with a 5-man protection, right? Let's see how he does that kind of stuff. And if it works out, that is a really potent offense, by the way. Like, we're not foregoing this game. That doesn't mean we're tanking the game at all. It means let's do the higher difficulty, higher reward stuff with Jordan Love. See if we can't get on the right side of variance and get a run. But also, if he does fail at that, okay, we know where he's at. And that's okay. Yeah. And also, an avulsion fracture is a completely psychotic thing to play through.
You're talking about ligament damage. You're talking about a fracture in the thumb plus the ligament damage. Like, there's so much
and a rib
there
injury
on the throwing.
Rest hand. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like, just from a medical sanity standpoint.
Yeah, this was
give him a week. Holy crap!
Yeah, this was my closing point on this idea was, don't let Aaron Rodgers' last rodeo with your team, should that be the case, be him getting carted off the field. Like, as much of a wild person as he has become over the course of this season, don't let that be the lasting image of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, because he does deserve better than that. 100% deserves better than that in terms of what he did for the franchise. So there's also like that part of this game that I'm playing too, of like, don't let that be the case.
Yeah, and if you want like a dignified exit, then you kind of have to let it be on his terms, though. And that means playing him. So there's a bit of a catch-22.
There is.
Otherwise, the lasting image is this last game, is getting the crap beat out of him in Philadelphia, getting blasted by a superior team. Is that the lasting image? I guess not. Maybe the lasting image
out there
be going and sticking it to Chicago in Soldier Field one last time.
Yeah, exactly. Like put him out there for against Chicago. Put him out there against Detroit or something like that. As good as Detroit has been, like those things. But I don't think that you rely on him to wrap up this season for you if the injuries are as such that they are willing to keep him off the field. Look, if the injuries aren't that bad and if he feels good enough to go out there, then go out there. But if the injuries are bad and we're talking about like psycho behavior in terms of going out there and trying to play through this stuff, there's no need for it. There's no need for it.
Absolutely. But you know what there is a need for?
What?
Transportation. When you're out of town, or if maybe you're just trying to test drive something, you're just trying to play around, check out Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. You can book everything from an SUV that fits the whole family to something fun and sporty to something, that's just like affordable economy car that gets you from A to B, test drive an electric car, test drive something, hybrid or something that you've been thinking about, anything you want. You can probably find it at Turo, and some Turo hosts will even deliver the car right to you. They'll drive it right out to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com.
All right, y'all, we are continuing on with this episode of Locked On NFL. Now it's time to pour one out. This is the segment where we effectively say goodbye, good night to teams that are all done and all gone for the rest of the year. We appreciate you, as always, making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day. Every day, if you'd like, you could, for your second listen today, go and check out Locked On Sports today, which features Peter Bukowski, who will very likely be talking about Aaron Rodgers because he is also the Locked On Packers host, but also our fantastic band of local experts bringing you everything you need to know around the wild world of sports. So make sure you go and check that out on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So update on Michael, who we discussed earlier, who I thought was a Packers fan. He's actually a Saints fan. So shout out to Michael, and shout out to the great city of Metairie, or Luke, as we call it here in Louisiana, Metairie, because we ain't got time for all these syllables out here. And so the way that we drop syllables in Louisiana reminds me of the way that you and I drop teams on Tuesday. So it's time to pour one out. And this is a team we haven't.
I thought that was going to be an Amari Cooper joke.
No, not gonna go that far.
I really thought that was going a different way.
That would be great though. But it's time to pour one out. This is where we say goodbye to teams. Who is the team that you are pouring one out for this week?
I'm just still kind of going through the easy ones that we just haven't had time to get to yet. But Monday Night Football, Colts at home against a 3-win Steelers team. And they look completely outmatched. They made a game of it a little bit at the end there, but it was very clear who the best team on the field was tonight. Very clear who the best unit on the field was tonight, which was the Steelers defense. Matt Ryan, I tweeted out, I think I've seen Steph Curry threes with more zip on them than a Matt Ryan quick out. He just does not have the juice for that thing anymore.
No.
It's time to put
doesn't
the Colts
even
to pasture.
Yeah, and not only do the passes not have the zip on them, like they don't even push the ball downfield anymore. They just don't even look more than 7 yards downfield any longer.
No, if you can play tight,
some of it's the offensive.
If you can plant if you can plant your heels on the 12 yards past the line of scrimmage, play stuff tight, keep your eyes on the quarterback, get ready to break on something. I mean, that thing gets stuck in traffic on the way. You've got time to break on that.
It's on the 405.
It's rough. God, we could have poured out the Colts like 3 weeks ago.
We really could have, yeah. But I'm glad we kind of waited because like this display really showed you what that team is.
This is the send off that then they kind of like pull their pants back up and walk away. Sad, like this was truly the end of this. And it's like we could have poured them out the second they hired Jeff Saturday, but then they went and won a game.
Yeah. So we're like, hey, let's wait and see, like give them the benefit of the doubt.
And they've been reasonably competitive in these games, and they are still technically, they might make an in the hunt graphic or two. But I just don't see them catching the real wild card teams of the AFC. I think they are close to getting eliminated from AFC South contention.
Yeah.
But I don't even see them catching, the Jets and the Bengals / Ravens, whoever doesn't win that division. I just don't see them catching up. Again, they're like 4 games out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I could have poured you out when you tied the Texans week 1.
That was exactly right. So the 538 has their playoff chances at 2%, has their division chances, Luke, at 0.7%. This team is cooked. They're done.
Yeah, we're way too late on this one, but more
like,
of a formality.
Yeah, like they got the new coach. We wanted to see. They went through they kind of went through a little version of their own like quarterback hell with like Matt Ryan, but oh no, it's Sam Ellinger, but oh no, it's Matt Ryan again. Like that whole thing and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of like, okay, let's wait and see.
35 times you have Jonathan Taylor. You have one of the best rushing game. What are you
So
doing?
this is my thing was like, so my question for you around, because I'm with you, like the Colts is the only team I need to pour one out for today. But, Jonathan Taylor is without a doubt the best player that this Indianapolis Colts team has to offer. I won't even say on offense because right now Shaquille Leonard isn't on the field. And so that's the best player that they have to offer. And instead of leaning in there, which don't get me wrong, he got 20 carries today, but Jonathan Taylor is a 30 to 35 carry per game guy, right? And the deficit here wasn't that far. You have Jeff Saturday, who's a former offensive lineman in the NFL. I am so surprised that this team does not stick to its run game the way that they should with a Matt Ryan under quarterback or under center who can't get the ball more than 10 yards downfield at a time. Like it shocks me that they don't go with the bread and butter.
And like the point of being a team that lives on its pass game, right? You think of like Bills, that Bills aren't quite like this anymore, or aren't as extreme anymore, but like the Bills of a couple of years ago that just were like, we're just going to live 80% pass, is that every play could get 15 yards all the time. And it's a lot easier to generate explosives and all that. And like,
you'll take the variance.
The punishment. Yeah. The floor being lower is like worth it because of, over time you're going to generate a profit there. But with the Colts pass game, they can't get that thing more than 10 yards downfield. What's the point?
Yeah. What's the deal? There's nothing there. Like there's just nothing there for that passing game. And it's crude. It's brutal. It's brutal. And this isn't the last that we'll discuss with this game in particular, because we've got our yike coming up that'll kind of blend into some of this. But two things that I want to mention real quick. Kenny Pickett being the only first-round quarterback in the 2022 NFL draft made a ton of sense when it happened. The only question mark that I had was, is he actually a first-round talent, or did he just get the benefit of the doubt at pick 20 because he played in Pittsburgh Stadium, played in the Steelers Stadium while playing at Pitt? And he has impressed me so far this season with what we've seen from him. So I think that the Steelers have done a good thing for themselves. Helps to have Mike Tomlin as your head coach. But I think the Steelers have done a good thing for themselves with setting themselves up with Kenny Pickett, as long as he continues to develop at the rate that he's developing, which is pretty quick.
You need a little more from him, but he's on a good pace.
Yeah. It's all about where he's headed. I'm looking at potential with him right now, and you can see it. You can 100% see it. And it doesn't hurt that they have a guy that might be one of the 5 best wide receivers drafted in this NFL class, or in this draft class, in George Pickens on the way, by the way. He's got a couple of things that he can clean up as well. The sliding catch, trying to make the catch, sort of at the angle as opposed to getting his fingers underneath the ball. Another one over on the sideline, trying to make the hands catch instead of like utilizing the full body of his hands. There are little things like that of course you want to see just get better, but those are easy to fix things. Pickett and Pickens could be a really, really fun combination moving forward throughout the rest of, throughout their career.
I'm super excited for the patented young Steelers wide receiver bozo moment that inevitably befalls George Pickens. Got to have your first down celebration in a hurry up drill kind of deal, a really dumb taunting penalty or something. I'm really excited to see what George Pickens comes up with for his rite of passage.
Saints fans will always remember very fondly the mistaken it wasn't by a wide receiver, but the mistaken first down celebration on a fake punt down like a 4th and 6, and the guy gained like 3 yards and then did the whole first down celebration and then would go on to have a turnover on downs and lose that game. A thing of beauty. You
got another
poetry.
one to pour out, though.
Yeah, really quickly. I just want to pour one out for Jacoby Brissett. Look, Jacoby Brissett went out there throughout this season, and he led this Cleveland Browns team to a 4-7 record over the course of those first 11 games without Deshaun Watson, who of course was reinstated this week. And he goes out on a win, not just a win, but as you observed before we started recording, a win against Tom Brady in overtime.
His old flame, his old mentor.
Predecessor. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, so he gets, the student becomes the master. He gets the win there. And then now we're just never going to see him for the rest of the season because Deshaun Watson and his 31 civil cases are back on the field. And it's wild to me they just follow him around. And so it's wild to me. And I know, I get it. I know all those were settled, all these other things. I understand. But all I'm saying is that
as resolved as it ever will be.
Yeah, it's as resolved as it could be at this time. And I get that. But it is such a wild thing to me that all of a sudden, like Jacoby Brissett, we're just never going to hear about him for the rest of the season. So I'm going to pour one out for him, really in respect to him, because I think he did an admirable job knowing that his job was never going to be a permanent job and went out there and put together 11 pretty solid games. They only got a 4-7 record out of it, but 11 pretty solid games, and honestly probably overperformed the expectations.
Yeah, I think he's carved a place in this league. Probably hasn't played well enough to be a starter, but I think he's carved a place in this league for about as long as he physically can play quarterback as a backup.
Yeah,
I think he's
carved out
backup guy. A cushy little 7 or 8 years are ahead of Jacoby Brissett.
Much deserved. Hopefully Chase Daniel level paycheck stuff going on for that guy. We can only
hope. Speaking of old NFL players, Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil, and it is brought to you by Audible, as well as this episode of Locked On NFL, brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that you're going to love. So find Block Forever. That is Ryan Khalil sitting down with star players, coaches, former pros across the league to get real about what happens on the field and behind the scenes, inside locker rooms, and all of that stuff. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week just ahead of Thursday Night Football. Give you that real insider vibe that you can only really get from listening to former players kind of chopping it up once they're out of the spotlight and all the pressure's gone, and they can really tell you like what really happened. I love that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited for it. I hope you are too. You can catch the full Block Forever series available wherever you get your favorite podcast, wherever you're listening to this one, and it is available everywhere. Now, Audible, get in the game.
All right, everybody, wrapping up this episode of Locked On NFL with what has become my favorite segment to do every week. The yike of the week. The worst of the week.
One yike.
Luke, one yike. Yeah, we should further define that. There's yikes, but then there's a yike. And when there's a yike, things are pretty bad. So one yike is a bit of a statement here.
When it's only things are so bad that I only want to spend one yike on you.
You only get one. You only get one. So, Luke, what is your yike of the week this week?
I want you to imagine you're an NFL head coach.
Well,
I want you to imagine
Jeff Saturday, not hard.
Don't let your dreams be memes. I want you to imagine that it's Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
That you're playing at home. There are 37 seconds left in a game that you trail by 3. 2nd and 15. And you complete a pass for 14 yards. That takes a review, a lengthy process. You have a lot of time to think about what you're going to do.
Yep.
There are about 31 seconds left, and that 14-yard pass brings you into your kicker's field goal range. You have a timeout to use. In fact, you have all 3 timeouts to use. Do you call one in that moment? You've got about 31 seconds left. You could kick a field goal. You could not, and it would be otherwise 3rd and 1.
The way that I would go about this is that I would call the timeout, run the ball the next play to kind of get it. You know how sometimes kickers like it on a certain hash mark and stuff like that. Find out where that player wants it. Then
be a 51-yarder. So you might want to.
Oh yeah, might even want to gain a little bit. Yeah, gain a couple of yards there. So yeah, I would spend a timeout there with the intent of going out and either moving the ball forward or over to where my kicker wants. And then since I've got another timeout, I'll call a timeout after that and then get my kicker out. Like let it run down to 3 seconds, call my timeout, let my kicker get out there and hopefully seal the game.
So incomplete deep right to DJ Chark ain't the move?
No, it's not the way. Not the way to go.
Going deep.
Dan.
I even get I can even understand passing on a quick spacing or a quick turnaround or something like that. Like some stupid little.
Just if you're confident about 51, you know what I mean.
Right. And, one of those pass plays that you complete 95% of, and it's basically a run play, but a different kind of one.
Yep.
No. That's not what Dan Campbell did.
Oh,
He
my
called a
goodness.
timeout and then incomplete pass, stopped the clock again. They end up kicking the field goal. Not only is it a 51-yard field goal, and by the way, the Lions have like a famously pretty good run game.
Right.
And the Buffalo Bills run defense, this is from Thanksgiving game against Buffalo. Buffalo Bills run defense has been experiencing some problems.
Yeah.
So running the ball 3rd and 1 there, the way I've been saying this lately, if you can't get a yard, get the hell off the field. And the Lions couldn't get a yard because they tried to eat the whole thing in one bite. They end up kicking the field goal, 51 yards, and it's good. So if that were a miss, we would be having a whole bunch of conversations about going for it or whatever. Sure. But they kicked a field goal, 51 yards, good. Bills get the ball, and by the way, your opponent also has all 3 timeouts. They have 23 seconds left and 3 timeouts. And the Bills immediately hit Stephon Diggs for 36 yards. And then it's a timeout, play timeout, kick with 7 seconds to go, 45-yard field goal to win the game. You left 23 seconds for Josh Allen, and that's too much time. And here's the deal with this. We need to recalibrate what too much time is. Because if you went back 20 years even, or 30, go back to the 90s, right? 30 years. And tell some coach then that's coaching, Randall Cunningham, that we live in a world where 23 seconds is too much time. They would look at you like your head was on backwards.
Never
right?
believe you. 100%.
They would say, oh man, a minute 45 and no timeouts. These guys are doomed. That's the way things work back in the day. We live in a new era of Mahomeses and Allens. And shoot, let's throw the way Jalen Hurts is playing. Let's throw these guys in here. We live in a world where defenses who are backing way off and trying to get you to complete things over the middle and all that are going to let you dink and dunk down the field. We live in a world where you can go to the length of the field and get into field goal range in 23 seconds. This is our reality now. All right. Gen Z made it happen. Gen Z is killing the 2-minute defense.
The Madden.
All right, there's your article, New York Times. The Madden era. Yeah. We live in that world, and we have to recalibrate. 23 seconds is now a real amount of time. You used to be able to, we're going to punt them out. I got 23 seconds. They're totally screwed. Not anymore when they got 3 timeouts.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one. Yeah, and I think you're right. You really do have to sort of now rethink how much time you're really willing to leave on the clock with these young quarterbacks that are in the NFL and just with these offenses in the NFL. And of course, keeping in mind too, that they still had all 3 of their timeouts as well. Like that's the other piece of it too. So it was a very long 23 seconds for sure. My yike goes to, I'm just going to stretch it out real quick. The Atlanta Falcons. Oh, I love it.
Oh yeah. Feel it.
Oh man.
Savor it.
So
Milk
nice.
it.
I don't get to talk trash about the Atlanta Falcons much right now because the Saints aren't very good. They've been struggling a ton.
Yeah, at least they scored points.
Yeah. So they could slap me in the face anytime that they wanted. But man, when you also have clock mismanagement and everything that's going on all over the place. We kind of saw a little bit of clock mismanagement by Matt Ryan, Jeff Saturday, and the Indianapolis Colts in this past game, in this Monday Night Football game where they got to a 3rd and 3, could have called a timeout, really kind of went in with an actual game plan as opposed to, or the right play call, and then they rushed to the line and run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. The one time I would say probably not doing that, at least not without huddling and figuring out a play, and then end up having to burn a timeout after that instead of getting the right play call in. I just could not love the way that the Atlanta Falcons lost more than a tip, drill, interception on the 4-yard line against the Washington Commanders. That was it was just poetry, Luke. It was just poetry. And
the Falcons find the most creative ways.
That's the thing that's so incredible to me.
What will they think of next?
Right. Like the Atlanta Falcons, when they lose games, they don't just lose games. They drop, a score of, a 25-point lead. They dropped a 16-point lead at the beginning of this season. They had,
they lost a game by winning, or they lost a game by scoring a touchdown once.
Too early. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there are all of these weird, wild, wacky ways that the Atlanta Falcons lose games, and it never gets old. It never gets old. So it's a yike, Luke, but honestly, I kind of enjoy it. It's fun to watch.
It is the Falcons
what
are a
else?
spectacle.
Yeah, you are a spectacle. And you know what else? Just to further that yike a little bit further and make it a little bit more fair, the NFC South. Someone win the damn division already. Like,
I know.
Get out of
Can
my
we just,
face with
throw
all these
the
losing
Cowboys
teams.
in there and just let them take it?
Yeah, give it to somebody else. Like I think it was a Saints writer, Nick Underhill, that said something like, "Send a representative from another division."
Yeah, just get somebody else in. Give me, please, Lord, give me your game and a half out of first place Carolina Panthers. Let me see a miracle, please. Let me see a Christmas miracle.
How incredible is it that, like, technically both the Saints and the Falcons are still, the Saints and the Panthers are going to be, speaking of the in the hunt graphic, they're going to be in the hunt graphic. Send
Like,
4 teams from the NFC East. Give the NFC East what it deserves. Send all 4 of them and just
The
leave
Cowboys,
the
who
NFC
are
South out.
ripping teams up. Like, the Cowboys are playing unbelievably well, having to travel to Carolina to go take on Sam Darnold. Give it to me.
It'd be the perfect representation of the 2022 NFL season right there.
Give it to me.
And the only thing that would make it sweeter, is if the Carolina Panthers find a way to win the division with a losing record and win a playoff game.
Oh, yeah. Beastquake it.
So good. Home field advantage. Get out of my face. Get out of my face.
Oh, the first ever playoff game without playoff implications.
It's so bad. Oh, all right. That's my yike.
All right. Well, that is everything we got for you on the Locked On NFL podcast. Tomorrow, Tony and James have you. They'll preview Thursday Night Football, all that good stuff. So make
Power
sure
rankings, baby.
you check that out. Power rankings, yes, and the lovely charms of James and Tony. Love those guys. For Ross Jackson, I'm Luke Braun. Thanks for listening to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, free and available on all platforms.